Okay guys, so now we're going to pick up at number 11 on the chapter 3 practice test, and it says to find an equation of the line described below, write the equation in slope-intercept form, solve for y when possible. And it has to go through 6, 2, and 2, 6. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is try to find some information about this. Now one thing we can do for sure is we know when we have 2 points is that we can find a slope. Okay, and we can do that by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and you guys have already been learning in the lessons. There are a couple different ways you can do this. I think I've showed you one way in class, but I know in the videos you most likely saw this formula right here, this point-slope form of an equation. So if we can find the slope, we can use this form right here and pick one of these x and y's to substitute in place of that x1 and that y1 in the equation. So let's go ahead and find our slope. So let's subtract our y's, which would be this 6 minus 2, and then subtract our x's, so that'll be 2 minus 6. And what we end up with is 4 over negative 4, which means our slope is negative 1. Get that a little bit more room here. Our slope is negative 1. Okay, and so we have m equals negative 1. So now what we can do is we can come over here into our point slope equation and we can put a negative 1 in place of the m. And we can also substitute our x and our y with one of these x and y's. It doesn't matter which one you choose. So I'm just going to go with the first x and y. And in place of x, I'm going to put a 6. In place of y1, I'm going to put a 2. So I'm going to do y minus 2 equals m times x minus 6. So again, I replace my x with a 6 and my y1 with a 2. And then you're just going to start to simplify this equation. So you can distribute. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. And then to solve it, we're going to add 2 to both sides. So we have y equals negative 1x plus 8. So when you're solving for y and trying to get it into slope-intercept form, you can start with that point-slope form and plug in one of your points, doesn't matter which one you choose, and then your slope, and just keep working until the y is isolated all by itself. Now there's a second way in class that we discussed doing this as well, and I talked to you about if you're needing slope-intercept form and you have everything except the b, you can solve for the b. So you can put in place of your y, like over here, we can take this 2 and we can use our slope and then the x, which is 6, and we can start solving for the b. So we have 2 equals negative 6 plus b. We'll add 6 to both sides, and we get 8 equals b. So once you know that the b value is 8, you can just plug it all back into your slope-intercept equation. Our m was negative 1. Our b we just found is 8. And there we have our equation. And again, you can write this either as negative 1x plus 8, or you can write it as y equals negative x plus 8. So you have 2 different ways you can choose, to start with point slope and work your way down, or start with slope-intercept and substitute everything you know to find the b, the piece that you are missing, and then rewrite that equation with the correct slope and y-intercept that you just found. Okay, starting with number 12, it says given the following functions, find f of negative 4, f of 0, and f of 2. So what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be substituting in place of the f of x in the equation. In place of the x, you're going to be substituting in the given value. So we're going to solve this first one with a negative 4 in place of the x. So we're going to do f of negative 4, which means we're doing negative 4 times negative 4 plus 2. Okay, negative 4 times negative 4 is 16, and then 16 plus 2 is 18. So I have the ordered pair negative 4, 18, because I put in a negative 4 and I got out an 18. But all we're asked to do here is tell what we get out. So f of negative 4 equals 18. Okay, then you can continue on. And this time we're gonna solve f of 0. So in place of the x, we're gonna put a 0. in this equation, in this function. So negative 4 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2. So we put in a 0, we got out a 2. So f of 0 equals 2. Now we're going to work f of 2, which means where we see that x, we're going to put in a 2. So using the order of operations, negative 2 times 2 is negative 8, and negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. So we put in a 2 and we got out a negative 6. So f of 2 is negative 6. Alrighty. Now let's check out number 13. Graph the linear equation. Use the graphing tool to graph the equation. So that means you're going to be coming over here and you're going to be plotting those x and y intercepts or slope intercept form. Now it doesn't specify that you have to use the x and y intercepts. So you can use the x and y intercepts, or you can choose to just find 2 points that are on that line and maybe use slope intercept form. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one and I'm going to rearrange it into slope intercept form by moving that x to the other side. So I have negative 3y equals negative x plus 9. Divide by negative 3 all the way across. And you have y equals, now remember, a negative divided by negative is a positive. This is like a negative 1x, so we can think of that as 1/3 x, and then 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. So we could actually go straight from here over to our graph because we have an m and we have a b. And if you remember, we begin with our b and we move with our m. So we can begin at negative 3 on the y-axis since that's a y-intercept, and we can move with that slope, which is 1/3. So that means we're going to go up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3. And then we can connect those together into a line. Now you also have the option that you could do like we did on 2 previous problems, and you can solve and find the x and y intercepts like we did before. You can do this. You can zero out your y to find your x value. That makes your x-intercept. And you can see here's our x-intercept right there at 9, 0. And then you can zero out your x. To find your y-intercept. That's the point 0, negative 3, which you can see plotted right here on the graph. So you can choose to do it this way or that way. Either one of those will work. Alright, now looking at number 14, complete the table of ordered pairs for the given linear equation. What you're going to do on this one is you're just going to substitute in the values that you're given. So you're supposed to figure out what happens whenever you have an x value of 0, a y value of 0, and a y value of 2. So that's 3 different problems you're going to solve. So you'll just be plugging those in. And you'll plug in 0 for x, solve your equation. You get y equals 5. Then we're going to be plugging in 0 for y. And we're going to pause for just a moment and look at what we have here. If we have the point 0, 5, if there's a 0 as one of the coordinates, that's one of the intercepts. And the point 0, 5 is the y-intercept because the x value is always a 0 when you're on the y-axis. And then the point 15, 0 is the x-intercept because anytime you're on the x-axis, your y value is always a 0. So we actually have our x and our y-intercepts here. And then we have one more to solve. We're going to substitute here in place of the y value. X plus 3 times 2 equals 15. So x plus 6 equals 15. Then we're going to subtract 6 from both sides, so x equals 9. Alright, so whenever our y value is a 2, the x value is a 9. And then if you needed to graph this, you could pick any 2 of these points to plot on the graph and connect those together and make your line. Okay, number 15 is pretty simple. You're just asked to identify the intercepts. You can see this point right here. This is your y-intercept. and it's located at the point 0, -1. And this is your x-intercept, which is located at the point 1, 0. So the x-intercepts, there's only one, and it's 1, 0. It says to type it as an ordered pair and use a comma to separate your answers. The y-intercept is just this one, which is 0, -1, and again, it's as an ordered pair. Number 16, find an equation of the line containing the given pair of points. So we're going to need to find the slope and the y-intercept, because this does ask us to write it in slope-intercept form. One thing you should make note of is right here, you see that 0, 0? We know the graph goes through the origin because it's got a 0, 0, so it may tilt up, it may tilt down, but we know it's going to go through the origin because that's given to us. So that's telling you your y-intercept. Your x and your y-intercept are both at 0 because it goes right through the origin. So we already know the b in this equation. We already know b equals 0. Okay, but we do need to find our m, so we can subtract our y's by doing 8 minus 0, subtract your x's, and you get 8 over 5. So when you want to write that in slope-intercept form, you have y equals 8/5 x plus 0. You don't really have to have that plus 0 on there, so you can just say y equals 8/5 x. And your equation is now in slope-intercept form. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video as well and then come back and finish out for you with 17, 18. Oh, you know what? Actually, I think we have time to finish this one. Let's go ahead and try this one. Sometimes if the videos get too long, they're hard to post, but I think we might have time to catch this one up here. So let's see. Plot the ordered pair -2, 5 and state which quadrant or on which axis the point lies. So if I go to the point -2, -5, it's going to be right here. And that is in quadrant 3. If you remember, this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the point -2, -5 is in quadrant 3. Alright, number 18, find the x and y coordinates of point E. Okay, point E from the origin, you would have to move in the x direction. Remember, you have to do your x movement first. You have to move horizontally and then vertically. So from the origin, you're going to have to go over 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the left. So you have to go to -4, and then you have to go down 3. So that's -3. So the point E is located at -4, -3, and that's an ordered pair. Then we're going to graph our linear equation in number 19. We have x plus 3 equals 0. If you solve that equation and you move that 3 to the other side, you have x equals -3. Remember, x equals, those are equations of vertical lines, which means they're going to have an undefined slope. So all the x values have to be -3, like -3, 0, -3, 1, -3, 12, -3, -2. So we can just go plot a few of those points. Go to -3, 0, -3, 1, -3, 12 won't fit on this graph, so let's go over here to -3, -2, and you notice those are going to make a vertical line. So just plot any two of those and connect them together. And then we have one more here, and it says, for the following equation, find 3 ordered pair solutions by completing the table. And again, we're just going to do like we did in a previous problem, and we're going to be substituting in these values. And when you solve this, y equals 4x, we're going to do y equals 4 times 0, which is 0. So we put in a 0 and we got out a 0. Then we're going to do y equals 4x, and that's y equals 4 times -2, which is -8. And then y equals 4x, where our x value is a 2, so we're going to do 4 times 2. So we have, again, 8. Oh, 8 this time, +8. So we put in a 2 and we got out a +8. And then you just come over here and you graph those. 0, 0, -2, -8, and +2, +8. There you go. And then you just connect those in a line. Okay, well, there you go. There is the rest of the practice test for Chapter 3.